understand Burton's on its way. This is time.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Oh, well, there he is. Who we got online up there?
I'm in the cloud.
Okay. You guys don't learn, we have Kyla, and it looks like we have Alicia. Anybody else?
Marshall was on there, but maybe she's on her way out.
Okay, we'll hold off for another 5 minutes, I guess, and see some late arrival do arrive.
There's sound in there. Is Neva coming? Is Neva coming?
She probably got one, right?
Are we live? Yeah, I just have to turn off the mic. Sorry. They can go to YouTube if they don't. We can't go on. It'll be recorded and reposted after. There's like so sometimes it's kind of hard to do. So sometimes you have to talk. Almost, you almost sometimes.
Okay, I'm gonna call this meeting to order. It was scheduled for 1 o'clock, and people have been notified, and we do have in attendance Councilor Valerie, Councilor Lyle, Councilor Lane, Councilor Ron, and up on the board I see Councilor Burton. Are there any others up there?
This is Neva, just joining.
Okay, Neva, welcome.
Yep.
We have Councilor Lee. Okay, we're calling the session to order. Burton, could I ask you to open us up with a prayer, please?
Okay, Well, will do. And after I finish the prayer, we'll have a stand and have a moment of silence for Leonard and those that have passed. Lord God, we thank you for your faithfulness. We thank you for this day, oh God, and we thank you for this community, each family, each member, oh God, and for this chief and council, oh Lord. We pray, Holy Spirit, that you would help guide each one with your wisdom, oh God, and that you would just direct us to your guidance, oh God. And Lord, we pray for all those families that are, for Leonard's family and for all those that have passed on, for those grieving. We pray comfort and strength to them. And we ask it in your name, Jesus. And this time we'll take a moment of silence for them.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Let's get underway. Thank you, Burton.
Amen.
Okay, before us, we have the agenda for the special council meeting of March 26, 2021. The agenda is as follows. Number one, background information on emergency operations control group with a number of issues, the 2020 action plan, the communicable disease emergency work plan, and the health and safety guide for the regular council minutes of January 12, 2021. The objectives for today's meetings are community safety action plan. We're going to receive a COVID-19 update, some discussion on the potential monitoring, and an update on the investigation on marsh areas. There's no business arising. Number 4 will be adjournment. You have a mover and second for the agenda. Moved by Ron, a second, please. Second by Valerie. All those in favor? Are there any objections? I see none. The agenda is carried. Okay, I want to begin some discussion with what's happening with the emergency operations control group. And I guess I'll turn that over to James and to provide us an update on what's happening there. And I guess any issues that are flagged for the attention of council.
Sure. So we are still meeting weekly, although we've been calling special meetings about twice a month, I would say. And our primary activity has been monitoring the alert levels under the COVID action plan. So as you know, we're currently in the highest level of restrictions, which is black lockdown. So at our last meeting, we reviewed our current restrictions and set them in place. And under the COVID action plan, we review that each week. So we'll be reviewing that again on Wednesday to determine whether the situation has changed. Right now, most of the indicators place us within black, which is the most restricted under our COVID action plan. And, sorry to digress a bit, but I know I've been asked this question lately. Just so you know, we modeled our COVID action plan on Six Nations COVID action plan. So if you're asked the question, why does it seem like the provinces, but it's slightly different?
The only conclusion I've noted that some community members recognize that the highest alert is gray, I guess, within the province, so by the province there, and we have black, and we're wondering where we get black and stuff like that. So it's good to have that explanation.
In addition to that, we were using a flag system and we couldn't buy a gray flag.
We don't have a gray flag. We have a black flag for our flag.
Valerie,
I have a question, James and Kyla. A lot of people have been told to isolate, and I've been hearing from community members that these people that are supposed to be isolated are actually driving around and being seen in the community. So I'd like to know exactly what does isolation mean and what should the restrictions be?
Isolation means that they are not allowed to leave their home. They can go outside in their own yard, but they're not allowed to be driving around or leaving their home, basically. They're supposed to stay in there until they're released by the health center, and we will call them. We try to call them daily. Not everybody answers, but they are supposed to be at their residence. When we do get reports of people wandering around, we either give them a letter, we call them to remind them that they're supposed to be at home, and we, if we can't get them to cooperate, we do inform the police.
I have a follow-up. It's not fair to us that do stay home, like the majority of the time, we only go out to shop and do whatever, like essential things that we need to do. So what, like, who is enforcing this? And if people aren't allowed, like if the health center is not allowed to share, who is in isolation, how are we gonna like regulate this? There's gotta be a way to do that. That's what my concern is. And from a lot of people that I've been hearing from.
My concern is that people aren't listening, that they are taking it upon themselves to put their needs above everyone else's. That's my overall concern, that, yeah, we've asked you to isolate, but they're putting everyone's safety at risk. So that's my major concern, is the selfishness of the individuals who are taking what they feel are their wants and needs above everyone else's. The other thing is, I'm not exactly sure, like I suppose we could give a list of the names to the police and say, can you drive by and make sure these people at their house all the time? But I don't know if that's a wise use of their resources. Personally, here at the health center, we have every staff member working on appointments for testing, appointments for vaccinations. So we have like 0 people to spare. So for people to police themselves is not working. So is there any suggestions from chief and council or police?
And that we have to have through the health center remind people of the self-isolation orders to self-isolate. There's nothing new about that. And Kyla alluded to the high amount of testing that's taking place and the higher amount of individuals under self-isolation. And I think that's been more tasking and it's been slightly less effective. But so far our process is, if they are not complying, we do follow up with letters before we get them off to the police. And that was an early decision. The police would have to have an educational role at first anyway. So it was decided it would be more efficient to have the health center follow through with that. And we do receive complaints on a regular basis. So even though we can't identify who is supposed to be self-isolating, people tend to find out anyway and complain to the health center, and we do follow up. But I think that's always been an issue, but it seems to be more of an issue now with the number of people that are required to be self-isolated over the last year. I'd
like to also add that while we were in strict lockdown, we've had several things like Super Bowl parties, family gatherings, birthday parties, and that was when we were in lockdown. So that's no different than isolation. It's like, you're not supposed to be doing these things and people still are doing them. So once again, it's not just the isolation, it's everybody putting their wants and needs above the safety of the community.
Marcia,
So what kind of penalty do we have to bring this to reality for people? Because our numbers are going up. We've had another death with Leonard. And I heard he only had that like 5 days. So
Be just careful with your, I guess, talk about the committee member, that next refer to third person perhaps.
Okay, but an elder who contracted it in a very short period of time. So we're hearing about parties and things like that. Do the police know who these people are that have COVID, and what is the penalty if someone will stop and say you're supposed to be in your home, if you're not in your home?
Right.
So what teeth do we have here to bring this to so that we clearly understand we're in a pandemic and it's lives that we're losing people. I understand Kyla's frustration because I have family members too that went to a birthday party and I said, you're not from my household, you're not. How do we get the word out? Do we collectively, chief and council, reinforce this and send out information? And then that's the other thing, we have people that aren't on WIFIN that don't get the information. We have people with I really like this, I'm so happy we got this, because it can go on the fridge, it gives you a lot of information. But what do you do with people that have vision problems that can't read? We need to get a better system out, whether it's phone calling. I'm prepared to sit and call people and talk to them. The elders and the families too, because they're the ones that are in a real high risk. We don't have a lot of elders left. I think I'm an elder, but don't feel like one, but I am. But I have to protect my 89-year-old mother. We have to take all those steps. So we can't be selfish and think and enjoy life the way it was before COVID, because that's not where we are now. It's a whole different ballgame.
That's correct. And I guess in quick response to your concerns is that we have to realize that we're effectively into a third wave COVID. We're now seeing the mounting pressures, and it's kind of alluded to from the Super Bowl parties, and people disregarding the restrictions on the meeting and gathering. And unfortunately, this includes our funeral services, etc. And this all contributes to the, where we're at now. We know that because of the size of our population, it appears that we have high numbers, but relatively speaking, they're in line, with the rest of the population. And when somebody passes within our community, everybody knows, and we all mourn. And as part of our new reality, we have to set in place and enforce. I guess that's the question, enforcement, the restrictions that we have, and whose responsibility is it? There's an overarching responsibility for the council, but we have to move within specified legal parameters to ensure that what we do is proper and to safeguard our liability issue. So with that, we have to rely upon the professionals, being our professional service providers in health services, through Kyla's office, and with our police department to communicate and to provide the necessary information back and forth to enforce that list of individuals that are infected, and to somehow put in place a system to monitor their activities and to check upon them to ensure that they're complying with the restrictions. Otherwise, it just opens up the rest of the community to infection, pointed out as identified by the community members. So, saying all of that, there's an onus, a need for our health center to provide a little bit more working communication through James and through our police service to look at identifying the system to provide that oversight. Dollar?
Oh, I was trying to say that there's another elder in ICU as of this morning. So we have 3 deaths and 1 elder in ICU. The other thing I was gonna say was that when I was on a call with Chiefs of Ontario Justice Committee, there was some of them in the communities northern areas have COVID bylaws. I mean, we know that we can't enforce bylaws because who's going to enforce them? But that would be one step in the right direction to do something and like quickly. Well, I know we have to get approval, but from the minister, but I mean, we have to do something. That's just an option.
So if there's a bylaw and it's enforceable, then the minister has approved that bylaw.
Yeah, yeah,
So we could ask them if they could share that.
yeah, and
Public- Public health bylaws we've already are using. But the penalties, what are you suggesting? We fine people?
I don't know if it's actually, if it's about fining. Like, I think the police could say, you're supposed to be in isolation or whatever. I think those are the people that we're worried about, like I am, that are supposed to be in isolation that aren't abiding by what should be done. That's my,
And we've done this already. We've handed out letters and things like that. But whether people, like, there's no consequence.
Okay, Lee and James.
Well, we talk about the people who don't isolate themselves and continue to go, whatever they want. I'm still thinking about the people that were allowed to come over the bridge. In the last week, I've seen people on parts of the island that aren't from here. I mean, I don't know how, that has to be stopped too. I mean, the other day I had 10 Harleys go by my place down on Squirrel Island, and they don't, you know, they don't get it. The sign at the bridge says to limit your interactions in the community. That's not happening. I mean, they're everywhere. I saw a family on highways at the parkway. I mean, it's, you know, hard enough to get our own people, but we're still allowing constant, could be carriers coming over every day to the pit stop, to the gas station. How many times we have to share a pump with somebody on Chad and Wallace where those things I look at, I know this, I've seen people who are supposed to be in isolation, cruising the back roads. Because they were without consequence. They're not gonna listen. They've proven that they're not going to listen, so there has to be something done. Like, a fine, maybe they'll get the message, they have to pay money or something, because, like I said, I've chased away people at the dump, High Bank, Squirrel Island, down on my place twice this week. But this is the stuff that's really going on in the community. You drive around the community, you look and you'll see people that you don't know who they are. I mean, so as our own people are self-isolating is one thing, but still allowing people to come and, like I said, it's a free for all. You know, drug dealers, people coming just to, you know, gas, smokes, weed, and then cruise the island. Those are the things that are happening every day. That's what you have to look at. I mean, yeah, so yeah, and then the number of people that are getting sick. I mean, it's just not our own people. It's just not our own people getting each other sick, they're not self-isolated. It's everybody that's coming over here are being allowed to cruise and go and do whatever they want out there.
We haven't had any contact tracing that involved any of the retail outlets or the gas station where we follow it back to a contact at one of those places. We did make visits to each one of the business owners and ensure that they had safety measures in place. I'm all for a gated community, but it's not stopping our people from gathering and having social activities. Unfortunately, we can trace back all of the present cases to families who have recently experienced a death within the last 6 months. So it's the supportive activities that people are really good at, like going and visiting family and coming together as a family unit. And that's what's mixing households, and that's what's transmitting the virus. And I don't know how to stop that, because we don't really want to stop the support, but we want to make sure that people do it safely.
Chief, this is Neva.
Any stores, it's not gonna, you have to see it, you have to know that that stuff's being passed. How do you check every single spot on this island that there's people visiting to? I mean, you go to the pit stop or to the gas station, that's basically it, but I'm looking, saying, I'm seeing people everywhere. And those are some places that they're not checking. Like I said, the family over, the kids playing all over the playground, looking at my legs. Anybody check that? I mean, that's a possible situation. You know, and an island family goes and plays on it too. That's can happen. So just don't think they check the arena and a couple of spots that are businesses that's not where it's coming from. They've got to open up our eyes to everything that's happening out there.
I'm sorry.
I guess the unfortunate thing is, though, that we're dealing with when we look at the bridge, we're looking at a two-way street. We're looking at allowing our members to go into other centers, whether it's Wallsburg, Chad, Sarnia, other places, I guess, to buy groceries, pay bills, or to do necessary activities. We're just as much as full, I guess, in terms of letting our people do that type of activity. We bring back compliance, whether it's a visit to other communities, with other family members, etc. So the only ultimate solution is to swing the bridge and to look at complete building. But if we do that, then how are we going to feed our families? How are we going to put fuel in our cars? How are we going to heat our homes? Do all those necessary things to keep our families going? So although it's a very unfortunate situation, we have to look at how do we address the needs of the community. Certainly, we can look at other measures of this to find ways of enforcing those that are needed, that have to self-isolate at such point, to prevent the spread of the disease. But in saying that, if we need some type of monitoring or control at the bridge, I would look at the recommendations coming from the Emergency Control Group, because they are the professionals. We have police representatives there, we have health representatives. Those are the professional service providers for this community. They provide us with the sound recommendations to deal with those types of issues. And I would refer that to them to work on some options and recommendations to bring back the council discussion and to explain those options to the council on behalf of the community. James?
Well, the one piece I would add is there are some provisions to pass a bylaw and enforce it without ministerial approval under COVID. So that's been in place for some time. It's something that we could research in terms of what would our options be. We haven't done much research in terms of the potential for bylaws, because we've been focusing on moving toward the Constitution and away from bylaws, but that's something the council wanted us to research, because ministerial approval, I think there's only certain types of bylaws that are required right now. Other bylaws come before immediately.
I guess in terms of going in the direction of formulating law, what are the consequences of this council formulating its own law and just implementing? If we believe we have a certain level of sovereignty and ability to govern ourselves, then the ultimate test is to put a law on the table and to implement it. I'm just wondering if this council is prepared to do that. James?
And maybe I could ask Chad whether that's something you're comfortable speaking to now, or whether you would want us to discuss options to come back with options in terms of it's possible to enforce within bylaws. Is there a difference between a law made on sovereignty versus bylaw?
don't know, I would think we do something like that.
I can't hear what you're saying, sorry.
I don't know, it's, the first time hearing something like this, or something I would want to research and know before I can give an answer. So I know our current bylaws, there's no one to prosecute, so we can't force them to a blame when it comes to actually the penalties we can written up. But down for those bylaws, there's nobody to prosecute for us.
Marcia?
We approved of a COVID security action plan group. Ron, Keenan, Lyle, Cody, Lee, and Neva back in November. Should they not be that group working on this security? Because I think it really helped having the security there, but I'm thinking we're in black now. And if we want to really be serious about this, we should have monitors there to monitor the people that are, to let them know you're coming because the businesses are open. Where are you going? Recording who they are. You're going here. Okay, we have a record of that. Once you're there, you leave immediately. That might help with just to show the outside community that we're serious, that we are in a code black, and we tell them we're in a code black, you know, we have COVID here. Do you really want to come onto our island now?
Well, when we got the bridge, and we look at the bridge the first time there, we had people coming over. We always thought that a good idea to have, you know what they're coming over for. They're either, I mean, we saw everything. We know people that are coming for gas, smokes, weed. We even knew the drug dealers. We knew everything that was going on there. We always thought a good idea is that once they get over the bridge, to have somebody follow them, or have some of the people on the major roads waiting, so that after they were done doing what they had to do, except the drug dealers, so that make sure that they were leaving immediately. So when we suspected somebody, we would follow them to make sure that they weren't lying. But for the most part, they did do what they said they were going to do and left immediately. But having somebody over, you know, they could, you know what they're going to do. They're going to take off and say, you know, that somebody's looking. So sometimes we try to have a vehicle in the mall parking lots, and just to have some constant communication with people at the bridge and at the mall parking lot or at the police station to say, okay, well, this one says they're doing this, but we don't think that's what you're doing. So to have more than just, no more eyes and ears, not just at the bridge. You're still going to allow people over. And they're gonna go get gas and smokes a week. That's basically what's out here. But then they're gonna take off. Like I said, I'm seeing half bike gangs down at my place just cruising around. I mean, if somebody were to stop them by the school or somewhere to say, hey, you can't be here, we need to leave. And you can stop them at the church, but that doesn't mean they're not gonna cruise the whole island after that. So we always start having more eyes and ears in different parts of the island, like the back roads, the entrances to the back roads, the dump. Just to have somebody say, okay, you're not supposed to be here, because once they cross the bridge, like I said, it's a group of, but that has to be stopped.
Again, the bridge is a two-way street. We're going to look at monitoring, et cetera, then we have to monitor our people, our own people crossing the bridge, and ask them where they're going. And what's the nature of their comings and goings and stuff like that. And then how do we monitor that?
We had one person from the island, this is just one example. One day at the bridge, we had one person cross over 51 times. Back and forth 51 times.
Well, that's my question. That's my
Oh,
question. How do you determine what they're doing?
You
Because they're coming.
How did you get this done? That's
It's
easy.
relevant to our community.
Yeah, so what they do, one person will go and do his stuff, and then you come back, and then you have to taxi. You do taxis all day long, so one day from what, 8 in the morning till 10 at night, he did across like 51 times. And that's the question, like, how are we supposed to stop this? If people
Well, that's the question, how do you stop? Wrong.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, and I mean, it comes after a lot like human rights issues. Questioning people's ability to cross and question them. We're not customs and by no means we're guards that post or maintain that. And I think it becomes offensive, especially because we're a nation oddly from other things, right? When we profess this is all our territory. However, there are people that are going places that they shouldn't be in the centers that are both ways. And, you know, I've been out in the back roads and stuff, and I have seen people, and I know we're selling fishing licenses and hunting licenses because it was posted on the internet. And so I'm not making up excuses, but people could say they're fishing out there. And I guess the thing of it is one of the ideas I thought, and I said it before, is what in Reed's thinking of that constable program. Extra, and they cruise the island and they'll be the eyes and ears for the police. So if it's serious, they can call the police for assistance. That's one. The other is identifying if they're going to go to retail outlets and other things, and they're not coming here to fish or hunt. Then there should be a designated area with a map mapped out which roads or areas they can be at and establish. And if you're caught beyond those boundaries unless you're lost, you'll be escorted off the First Nation or charged. Those are just some of the thoughts I thought for outside visitors, if that's what we so choose. Just food for thought. I don't know. I know it's hard to charge people unless they're actually breaking the law. Those are things that I think that we could do, and it's a short-term fix for now until we do other things. It's my problem.
Question.
I like that idea about the monitoring in the community because we have others that are afraid because of things that are happening. And I think if we had members that were somewhat trained to monitor, to call these elders and say, my name is so-and-so, I'm a monitor, I'm patrolling tonight. So I want you to know I'm going to be watching your house so that no one comes here. Because we've had a letter from another elder that's being harassed in her home. And I think she'd feel a lot better if we had monitors that would relieve some of that stress from the police. And they would be able to call the police and say, hey, look, you know, there's this car here with people that aren't from the island, and it's midnight, and they could let the police know. But I think that the community members, especially the elders that are living alone or have no one there with them, they would feel much safer if we took that action and hired some people to do just that, patrolling. And they could also monitor, you know, the strange vehicles or the strange strangers that are coming into the community, because we pretty well can pick those people out, you know, who they are and what are you doing here, what's your business here. So it's more than just the bridge, it's the patrolling of the community itself, because we're heard Lisa, they're all over, he's found here and there, and Ron, same thing. So I think that's something that should be looked at.
You're correct. The bridge is one thing. I don't know, we're getting into warmer weather, and I don't know how in the world you're going to look at people crossing over the boats to undertake their activities. It's going to take a lot of cooperation, and I don't know how our police service is going to be able to monitor the boat traffic that goes up and down the river, whether it's coming to walk along or not. Perhaps letting off or aliens and stuff like that. The walk line police self by itself, and service by itself, doesn't have the manpower or the resources to effectively address that. But getting back to the primary issue, I guess, in terms of responsibility, in terms of setting in place a system, a monitoring system, I would have to leave that under the umbrella of the police service, because they would recognize and identify the need for the professional aspect of providing security, et cetera. I think that lies within the realm and responsibility of the police service, our police service. And that, if a system is to be set in place, I would look for their guidance and their coordination, I guess, of that type of service. Because we have to be mindful, I guess, of legal consequences, and we have to look at respecting people's rights to a certain degree. Our people have certain rights, and certainly we have to respect the people across the bridge have certain rights. And we have to find a way to find a compromise to ensure the safety of our community while respecting everybody's rights. So we're going to need the cooperation of the police service in terms of providing that type of coordination. Because whatever we do, we have to do it within the confines of the law. Otherwise, we're working on anarchy. James Van Dalen.
So I think manpower is probably the primary obstacle if you wanted to put something in place quickly. If there's time for a recruitment plan and a training plan, something like a constable program would probably be workable. One thing that's been tabled in the past, but it's never been implemented, and I think there was some hesitation around this, so I'm wondering what council thoughts are on this, would be a surveillance system. There was the opportunity to implement that with the original Wi-Fi project. And we have some of the infrastructure to facilitate that, and that would be even easier to facilitate with an above ground fiber optic system that we're looking at. So I guess I just want to table that there in terms of trying to answer questions, where is that part going? I know there was a lot of discomfort with that in the past, but we do have an infrastructure system to support that now.
Just a quick question on that. So for this, the work being done on the updated camera and monitoring bridge.
So our IT staff assured us that the resolution is very good, and they looked at it and it had been disconnected within the tower. So they're going to provide myself and other staff and you as well, if you'd like, the credentials to be able to access it, so we can determine for ourselves whether it's adequate or not. That was the latest story.
So it's up and running again?
That's what I told.
Okay. Lead then, Marcia.
You're talking about.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Bill.
Fiber optic, long term, we need a solution now. And you're talking about policing. A couple of things that I want to point out is that if we're going to be sovereign nation, we can make whatever laws we want. Coming down the road, we can do something now. And the other thing is that with police services, because they're so short-staffed, what actually can you do? Like, that's my question. How can you, like, you're able to undertake a full-fledged operation that will help us monitor people coming up onto the reserve and those that should be isolated? That's my question.
Well, mentioned in the past, we had a community patrol where we hired some band players, 6 or 8 members to ride around with the car. We were an extra set of eyes and ears for us around the community. And this radio system set up in the office at the time to with our cruisers, communication with them. I think it helped back then. As far as right now, we're pretty busy. I would say about 85–90% of our calls for service are reacting to calls for service, and 15% proactive. I'd like to see us be more proactive, but it's difficult when people are responding to calls all the time. I can tell you from January 1st to today, compared to last year this time, we are 218 calls for service higher than last year. For this, just over 800 calls for service up to this morning. From the first of last year, we had 590, I believe it was. So, 118 or 218 calls for service victims. Since 2016, that's what climbing. 2016, we had around 350 calls for service for this year. I don't, we've been really busy lately, the guys are really great. Covering on the guys that are sick or need the time off. So have people coming for overtime, it's getting harder and harder to fill with our own members. We've had to ask OTP on a few occasions to cover for us, so we have police coverage in the community. So right now for something like that, I think it'd be hard with all these additional bodies. If we went to control that, but that's probably a big expense from what I remember. But I don't know if council's in a position to do that. It's something that could probably manage. Schedule noise and supervising them. With the current workload or assign somebody in my office to help with that, so.
So all those things are possible if you have the resources, whether it's cash or increased complement, etc. And the assignment rates, the overall coordination, you're quite capable of doing that. It's, I guess, a question of commitment. Question to the council: do you want to commit additional financial resources so that he can undertake those type of activities? With that, I guess we would need some type of identification of budget to make those types of considerations. But I would be quite in favor of that approach, I guess, in terms of the proper resourcing to assist our police service to enhance complement. Well, I don't think we have the authority to increase complement, but we certainly help with the increase of manpower to do a lot of the community surveillance and other activities that are necessary to safeguard us, to safeguard the interests of the community. And I would be in favor of that. The council is wishing to consider that later.
I just wanted to take along with what Val was saying about something has to be done now. I don't think there's any time for training or for the hiring project. I don't know how that works, but it has to be done now. We're talking COVID deaths, but we're talking about these young guys who are committing suicide, all the break-ins. Those are all drug related. You have to know. If you're in the community, you hear people talking. Like I said, I think we all know where the drug houses are. We know all that kind of stuff that's going on. We got to stop that now, or there's no way that we have to wait another week to get all these things. You know, oh, we have to go through county. You know, it has to be done immediately. I don't know how that process works. It's going to have to take extra guys. I know that. But if we have to sit here and wait every 2 weeks, another 2 weeks after that, what's happening on this reserve right now is brutal, brutal. And we don't we don't shut the door right now and stop going through the whole process of finding guys and all that kind of stuff. Put it out there, get 20, 30 guys that are willing to, there's more than that many guys on the island that be willing to help. That's what it's gonna take. I mean, I can't believe in the last 2 weeks, the stories that I've heard. I don't know if you've all heard them or witnessed it yourselves, but immediate action has to be taken. I don't know, like I said, James, I don't know the problem to hire. And if we are to do it, we need to make sure that we're hiring the right people who want to be able to do it and make that difference. Because I know some of the people, like I said, some of the things that I've been beginning about the shelter and other places that are, the hiring process isn't working. It's not that reliable. We need people who are going to be there, who are going to put that and who want the safety of the community back. I mean, the deaths, the suicide, I mean, those things. we have one of the major problems of a major city. You know, and what are we gonna do, wait? And we're just gonna keep talking about it and waiting for it? I mean, it has to be stopped now. I don't, like I said, I'm not sure how we're gonna do it, but I mean, I've never seen it as bad out here ever. So if there's a way that we can speed it up and get 20 or 30 guys who are willing to go and start the balance of this stuff, it's gonna get worse.
Not to confuse the issues, I think that certainly you raise a good point there, but I think we're dealing specifically right now with issues involving around COVID-19 in terms of the.
I think it all joins together. I think it's all combined. I mean, once we worried about COVID-19, this other is worse, in my opinion. It's worse. It's destroying more lives than what COVID's doing. That's just my opinion, you know, like I said, I think we're in black, we should be, there should be no color for what is going on around other than COVID.
I think we all agree with that. Ron?
Yeah, I think at COVID, I mean, they would be part of that action. And it's not just what you go to GHQ, which is General Headquarters in the area, and right in your backyard, they have and other problems that are severe. And China Kent, as you know, is probably one of the highest in the country. So that's what you're feeling the residue of the effects of in our community. Those overspill into our community. And those have been going on for years, if not decades. And I'm not trying to minimize any, but I think the plan of action is you have to have a plan of action because there are liabilities and we do have to go through the process because you're dealing with people that are under the influence of different things and you want professionalism. If they're going to be doing checks on community members, they have to be professional. They have to take notes. You just can't show up because those notes become witnesses in the court. And that's what became valuable last time. So those things have to happen. If you want to do that, you'll have to swing at least $250,000 to $300,000 or $400,000 to do this if you want to do it. And that's, you're going to have at least 8 to 10 bodies with vehicles, and they've got to be trained. The training doesn't come for free. So those are things that if you want to look at that, that's just a hit in a nutshell. So, you know, that's just my end on if we do this.
No, I agree that the approach is in a very organized manner. We're looking at resourcing the police station and walk line police service. Then we need some type of input, I guess, in terms of the budget construction, so that we can approve it. We just can't approach it to something very blindly, start spending recklessly. We need a budget, and I think if we can agree that we need an emergency budget to address the safety and COVID issues of Walk Island, to do the things that we want through the results through the initiative proposed by the emergency control group, plus the council for the health and safety of the community. And that's the task.
Chief, this is Neva.
Yes, she had her hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see the hand.
Oh.
Okay, get up there. Neva.
Yes, bonjour, everybody. I'm currently in isolation. No testing, no symptoms, just have to isolate. But my concern here and the reason I asked and request for this meeting was to come up with strategies and get them employed now, because the urgency of these matters that we're talking about today, we should have been meeting at that table Marsha mentioned to have the strategy developed. So today, what I was hoping to hear are those strategies we put forward, passing those strategies and motions and getting things put into place today. The urgency of this matter, I think, really needs to be done, and it also needs to be communicated to our community that leadership is doing something. One of the things I suggest as a strategy is to do a weekly update on the camera on Facebook like we were in the past. The seriousness of COVID and the transition a year ago was way different than it is today. And I think it needs to go back to that. I think the parameters need to be set and explain to the community what will happen, and that we all as community need to report those things to the proper people and who those are. But I really think leadership needs to be part of the meetings that are being held and around security for the community and for the bridge. There's so many more issues that we are facing, and that's the need here. That's what's pressing our urgency as council members and leadership to come forward and let's do something now. Let's get something in today. Miigwech.
Thank you, Eva. James?
So in terms of restarting the constable plan that we've identified, we are in good shape to bring the budget for next year to council at the next regular meeting. So there is an opportunity to include that in our budget moving forward. In terms of doing something now, I agree with Ron's comments that if we hire people without any training to do investigative sort of work, the risk associated with that, I think, outweighs the benefits of immediate action. If you wanted immediate action, there are private investigative services that are very expensive and you would be looking at outsiders. But that's the only way where I could think of if you wanted investigative work to happen on a large scale right away. There are firms that conduct those kinds of services. But if you wanted our own members, I feel like that kind of work requires even a higher standard of care than the bridge security, because not only are you potentially putting members in harm's way, but they are going to be tasked with taking all the right steps through the process so that it can be upheld in a prosecution, essentially. So I do think there are immediate options. That's probably one I would consider if you're looking for immediate investigative work in regards to crime. Maybe we look at retaining somebody until we have a trained force of our own. That would be my suggestion.
Well, did you have your hand up? Yeah. Okay, well, then Marsh.
What about me? I thought we said me next.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Why do we keep missing again?
No, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I have a real problem with, then trying to do that to women, so I would just take note.
I'm not trying to be disrespectful.
Okay, good. Two issues, and I think there's two different things here that we're talking about. The one that I like James's idea about getting a private investigator to talk about or do more research or whatever they do on the drug problem. I think that needs to be done ASAP. And the other thing too is that with the COVID, I agree with Neva that we and Wes should put that clearly in her issues that needed to be addressed today was that there needed to be a strategy and that we need to come up with a plan today. What I think we should do, because we can't wait and train security officers, that we should hire an outside company to come in and not like do some of the work, and maybe, I don't even know how long it takes to do a security program, but I know that there was security program done here. There's only like 7 people that I think it was that
Hello?
I think the internet at the band office went down.
Oh, no. I was wondering, I can still see a couple of people on here.
Yeah, I lost this Burton here. I lost the feed a little while ago as well.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
know-
Val was
I
just
noticed,
talking.
yeah, Kyla even got disconnected.
Oh, goodness.
It's weird.
Okay, I texted Derek, so he hasn't gotten back to me yet, so I don't know what, because I'm trying to honor the gray measures, not overcrowd a room or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just got put on isolation.
Oh,
I don't
wow.
have any, yeah, I don't have any symptoms, but my daughter tested positive and I seen her. So Michaela suggested I be on isolation for 2 weeks from this past Sunday. So
Yeah,
I
that's
just,
wise. That's wise.
yeah, she just told me today. So
Okay, wow. Yeah,
otherwise I'd be there too.
yeah. Well, I have to be particularly careful because my mom is bedridden and I don't want to be,
Oh,
I want to limit my exposure to anybody really. So,
right. Yeah, me too. I don't want to get papa sick.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Wow. So Neva, you were mentioning the that group, the COVID-19 working group and security action planning. You mentioned there was a strategy tabled or was there not?
Well, we formed a group and
Yeah.
this was at the beginning and the strategy would have been developed by now. We probably would have had uh, trained more security. We would have been ready to roll in the event we had to close the bridge again or monitor. But it
Okay.
was also going to address other things and we were going to include the police with that group. Cody had some ideas and he was the one who was taking the lead on it
Uh-huh.
to organize us. And since COVID and all that, that's been a little while, almost a year.
Okay. So it
So,
just hasn't been meeting, I guess, eh?
right, it hasn't been active.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, that's a,
Is that the one meeting with Kyla?
No,
Is it
this is
not
the
that
different.
one?
No, this one is
Oh,
specific with council, and it's kind of like a task force, and with resources, helping us to create a a strategy and then develop the budget and all that. What they're talking about now. So I mean, like we got to get that in place regardless. That should be a task today, um, to get that started.
yeah, I think that that's just very urgent. It was, I have the list here. It was put in place November 16th. Neva,
Right.
Lee, Keenan, Lyle, Cody, and Ron. And
Yeah.
so it's not a lost cause, but it's just got to be ramped up, I guess.
Right. Right. Yeah. Because there are a lot of strategies that don't take money for us to do. It just takes communication. It takes, even just the neighborhood watch. That doesn't take money. It just takes informing the community and how it runs and how things work. Like that's the thing. Like with what I'm thinking about with uh, how COVID's spreading and people aren't taking it as seriously is because they haven't heard over and over again. Yeah, social distance, wear your mask, wash your hands. But in a community about how serious it can spread and also what isolating means, about limiting yourself. There is a thing that says, well, if you're taking care, you can have one other household if you're a single person. So like, um, but then some people take it upon themselves, oh, I'm that person or I'm that person. And then you got three persons going over to one person's house and you're still spreading things and the gatherings as well. Like we were mom's death, we really just had to, we couldn't have anything.
Yeah, that was
So
pretty well conducted with the distancing and stuff. That was quite good. One thought is what Six Nations did, because they went up to 130 cases, right? And
Right.
it was precipitated from their traditional gatherings and so on. And there was a few families that just went all out with their home visiting and stuff like that. But they got it back down to 12. They're in orange again. But what one of the things the chief and council did was they went on YouTube, and just kept
Yep,
emphasizing that message.
exactly. And that's what I think we need to do. Like, we should do a release today. Oh, there they are.
Yep.
And if you need to know anything, for emergency response team, there's one lady from our community, and that's Kyla. The other lady that sits on that team is Kathy, who's not even, Dr. Kathy, who's not even from our community. But anyway, let's get it clear, who's the COVID team and who's emergency response, because emergency response was calling all the shots, and it's all men, except for Kyla and Dr. Kathy, who's not a member of our community. The other thing is a lot of time trying to put in place, how much money are we gonna put into this? Yes, I agree, something needs to be done, our community members are concerned and worried. And also, Keenan's already been called, Keenan's went out in the river with the police to save someone last Saturday night, and Keenan's and Heather are running around at all hours of the night, trying to see what's going on, and they're seeing a lot going on at night. But anyways, I hope Keenan can speak to that.
James.
If I could address some of those concerns. We requested the COVID action plan committee to develop a COVID action plan, which was approved by council. It's identified responsibility of the emergency operations control group to monitor, because we have staff that's members that can immediately bring that information forward. There's 3 female members of the primary control group, Arlene, Kyla, and Adele. You mentioned Dr. Kathy is not a member. She's actually not a member of the control group. She was invited there to address the closure of the school and the daycare.
Well, how many times do they attend meetings, everybody? Because it just looks sporadic to me when I see who attended meetings in the minutes. And I think the community needs to know who sits on emergency response and who sits on COVID, so that they know who to talk to. Is that public?
It's public by council.
But I mean, if we put something out in the community, maybe I don't think a lot of community members read the minutes or go online and see what's happening at the meetings. So I like these flyers that go out. I actually really like this, and just hope this can be dated and signed by somebody.
Yeah, who wrote this? Yeah, it doesn't have a signature.
I like this, it's a great, and I'm gonna put it on the fridge. But when we send out information to the community, we need to take ownership. So everybody who's on this group, their name should be here. So that, and a contact if we have questions. Because the community are calling us, wanting to know information, and we didn't have any information. Now I can go on this and say, well, this is where we're at. But people have told me, simplify. They said, simplify. Don't cite the wording of the act of the health thing. Don't just put points there. I had to call Kyla because the kids I rode on the bus were contacts of a person with COVID. So my kids are in that group. I said, what does that make me? Because I didn't know. She said, I'm a contact of a contact, and I don't have to isolate, but I have to monitor. So that's the information the community needs, that. Just simplify.
Can I note though, that information went out in December. It was just in a different format, exact same information. It went to everybody's mailbox because I delivered personally. Also, everyone also got thermometers, and they got information asking every person on the island, no matter if you had COVID, if you didn't have COVID, if you live next door to somebody with COVID, it didn't matter. I sent out calendars to everyone and asked them, can you please take your temperature every single day? Write down every person that you were in contact with and where you went, just so that if we did contact tracing, we'd have that information. It'd be so much easier. We've asked people to do this monitoring on a regular basis. As soon as you wake up in the morning, can I smell things? Can I taste things? Do I have a headache? Do I have a snuffly nose? Do I have allergies? I don't think I usually have allergies. I've got a call. So all this information has gone out, like, I don't know how many times, and we've done videos of it. We put it on Facebook. Anything we send out, we put copies on Facebook and on the WIFN site. I try to monitor Facebook to see who people can't find things. I direct them to it and things. I specifically have to send them actual links. It's like, it's there, really, it's there. So a lot of the information's gone out, and even the letter that went out with the school, the parents were all calling the school where it clearly says, call the health center. So I don't know how much more, like, we don't have the resources to call every person and say, hey, guess what? A letter just went out today. Can you read it? So we're running into that. So that's the problem, is that for a while we're putting everything out. Nobody was reading it. So it's like, okay, maybe we back off on that a little and just put the really important things out and put everything else online, or just wait for the phone calls. And then people are like, okay, why didn't I get this? It's like, well, you did get this. So I really don't know what else to do. Like, we've done videos, we've done radio, we've done internet, we've done Facebook, we've done flyers. I don't know what else to do. We're getting a sign.
Thank you, Carol. Valerie, then Jim.
I keep hearing, people that work for the band saying they don't have enough resources. Well, I think we need to put more money into if we're gonna come up with an action plan that's gonna help, we need to put money and action behind those words. I mean, if you need more people to monitor and call these people that are supposed to be isolated, then give health centers some more money so that you can hire people to actually call. And then if the police need people, then give them money to do whatever they can do.
I hate to say
We
that.
shouldn't have to sit here and talk about, well, we've done everything. I know you've done everything you can, but the thing is that our members, a lot of them don't read their, what do you call it, the flyers in the mail.
Yeah.
They don't read them. So you've got to actually, like, find a way to call them, check on them, you know, because they're not listening. Obviously, they're
For isolation people, we call.
like,
An example today, 3 people were put into isolation. They were told, do not go anywhere. We had to call their work and say, why are you there?
yeah, I mean.
So I don't know what, like, we can't go and lock people into their house. So I don't know what else we can do as a health center.
See, we have to come up with something that can be done. That's the end. What can we do then, Carla? Do you have any idea?
I would have done it by now if I had an idea. So that's why I'm like, we're at a loss. Like,
Can we put a lock them in the isolation tent?
it's not big enough. We have so many people in isolation right now. We have all of the elementary schools that kids were on, those 4 buses are in isolation. All of the high school kids that were on those 3 bus lines are in isolation. We have a number of contacts that are all in isolation. So we have the Ministry of Health calling people. We have FNIB calling people. We have our health center calling people. We've got, like, it's not that people aren't contacted, it's just that they don't care. And if people there's ramifications for using drugs, there's ramifications for speeding, there's ramifications for all these activities like stealing. We're seeing an overload of it, right? Jail, you can go to jail if you steal. It's like, you can't go out of your house because of COVID. It's like, oh, I don't care. There's no consequence, and it doesn't, even if there is a consequence, people aren't listening.
I think Kyla makes a very good point. So we can put out all the messages we want, we can make all the phone calls we want, explain it to them in their face. They're going to still disregard that and do what they want. I don't know what more can you do, I guess, in terms of convincing somebody that they should stay home, especially if they're ordered, I guess, to be isolated. I guess that's that issue here, is the will of people, individuals, I guess, and we can sit here and argue and discuss all the strategies in the world, but the onus is on individuals to abide by the regulations, abide by the rules, and if they can't, if they won't do that, then what more can you do? Like throw them in COVID jail? Go ahead.
I was gonna say, maybe we should do what Russia did and get some lions to come out and go around the community, everybody will stay home.
And so what?
They put lions and out on the streets,
Lions?
yeah, so people would stay home, nobody wanted to go.
We've always had people in self-isolation that weren't following the orders. In the past, it was easier for them to feel pressure by the community because word would get around. Now we have dozens of people in that situation. So it's just a matter of scale. They know they need to be self-isolating. They're disregarding it. And we know through contact tracing that the infection is spreading through social situations where you know you're not being safe. We know there isn't uncertainty and that tapping your debit card and taking a pack of gum, the infection isn't spreading that. We know it's through, well, I have to visit them, enough is enough. And you spread the virus by doing it. So, you know, we're at a bit of a loss because if we try to go, which is why the province hasn't gone into full lockdown and shut down all the retail stores entirely. Because they're not really seeing infection happening in those kinds of settings. They're happening in homes. Informal.
Junior.
Oh, man, where to begin? So I guess for myself, the biggest issue for the last couple of weeks has been around security, fire, thefts. I have been asked to reorganize the group that I ran before. It's all based on community members. So a couple of thoughts came to mind, and I know I commented on some of the comments that were being made on Facebook. So I don't know, take ownership. One of the things that I wanted to see was like our own customs on that bridge again. So in the first lockdown, when we did that, one of the things that was really significant in this community was the amount of thefts dropped down, and then the drug activity dropped down substantially. So I took recognition of that right away, and I think it's something that we need to do from now on. That should be a part of this First Nation. We should have our own customs on that bridge. And it has to be the other part that I recognize. There's a two-pronged approach. So what you hear prevalent in the community right now, and what I've been being told, is that there's all these non-natives up here. And to a certain extent, that's true. The other part of that, the other half of that problem is our own. And we have the tendency to not recognize that. And I think all of us, every person in this room knows somebody that involved with the activities of our own. I need to speak to probably Chad and Lyle after this meeting. I just got some more information this morning. So, in saying that, I think the focus needs to be a little bit more broadened on our security approach out here. I am going to activate my the strong arm group again, which is community based, and I think that's one of the messages that need to be more prevalent and personalized. And I see the COVID thing the same way, and it's not even specific to this community. Messages need to be targeted more towards individuals, make them take ownership, and make sure that they understand the risk that they're putting to everybody else. So I was told the other day by an individual out here that they don't care about me. I'm not worried about you. Put your mask on, I'm worried about me. Right? That mentality is different than what's going out in any media. So it makes the individuals take ownership, and that's what needs to happen. Same with all the security problems up here. People want a better community. There's more good people out here than bad, right? What we need to strategize and figure out is, how do we make people take that ownership? And how do you look out for your neighbor? And unfortunately, some of us don't have very good neighbors up here. And I've got issues just down the road from me. Right? So those sort of things, I've been told that I shouldn't talk about those things, but I do anyways. What's the worst that's gonna happen? People are gonna threaten me, people are gonna steal from me. That's been happening to me all along. I'm sick and tired of it. So now I'm gonna do something about it, now I'm gonna talk about it. And if I know the individuals, I'm gonna talk about them too. You look at other First Nation communities, they protest right in front of them drug houses, broad daylight, 24/7, till they shut them down. You know, that's the community taking ownership. That's what needs to happen here. We're a First Nation community. We're not Walsburg, we're not Sarnia, we're not Chatham. Our approaches should be different. And if we really care about our membership, then we need to show them that. Like, you can be a part of the rest of us, or you can be a lone soldier doing all the wrong things. Right? And those are the people that you see suffering in this community today. Look at all the drug addicted ones. You know, they weren't born like that. A lot of them made that decision. So I know when I have issues with them down the camp, I actually sit them down and tell them, you know, you made that decision, you own that. You want to get better, I'll help you. If not, get out of here. And it's not in the sense of being mean. These are things that need to happen. And some people will clean up. There are a bunch that have. Right? So one of the things, and I asked this through the Strong Arm group, I wanted some sort of resources that I could offer individuals. Because when I started that, I had a bunch come to me. Keenan, I want to get off the drugs. I want to live this life no more. So when I did help some of them, so I have friends on the mainland that will take an individual and they have to stick to it. They get a sponsor. Anytime they feel weakness, they can call their sponsor to get them through tough times, to give them another place to stay, to give them a job. Those are the things that goes on off this reserve, but they have to stay committed. There's nothing like that available here. So I think it's got to be a two-pronged approach, because people, the reality is public only trusts government so much, even First Nation government, right? So I know you've all heard it, I hear it all the damn time, right? You know, it's like, I don't trust our chief and council. And then nobody ever says why, it's just a mentality that develops. But I think you can bring champions in this, and there's probably champions already in this community that can do those sort of things. And start helping individuals, because there's a lot of people that want to talk to me, but don't want to talk to me because I sit on council. And fair enough, because I think if I know certain individuals, and if it comes to a push or a need to identify that individual, I probably would. But not in terms or the setting of hurting that individual, it's more of helping them. So I think our mentality needs to shift here. And that's why I started Strong Arm Group, because the police are only going to be told so much, and probably 99% of the time they're in a reactive mode anyway. Something had already happened why the police had to show up. I was trying to get into a proactive state and say, you know, we all need to change our mind here, and we need to start looking out for one another. You know, shake hands with your neighbor after COVID. But I mean, you understand that mentality. So, and I'll talk to individuals in this community, and I understand how the First Nation works. So we all have our bubbles at home, right? That's where it starts. But they start telling their friends and so on, right? So-and-so said this to me. You know, sometimes you gotta sound crazy before people start to understand, or you gotta repeat the message and just keep driving it home. But you'll be surprised, I was when I started Strong Arm. It was that same way. And then people that I never talked to, I already started to approach it. It's like, Keaton, I want to be part of your group. So I told him, you know, you're welcome to join the ride. I use the campgrounds as the hub. And then gather whatever information I had, and I would turn it either over to the police or I turned it over to chief of council, whoever wanted it. Right, but I was able to start approaching everybody. And so I keep that same mentality, keep doing those sort of things. For some reason, people need to report the stuff that gets stolen to me, and I try to tell them to take it to the police. But we look for stuff too, so occasionally we do recover some stuff. Right, so I think if everybody gets on board and starts looking out like that, if you see stuff that just isn't right, that's sitting in the bush, in the grass, on the edge of a field, you know, call somebody, call the police, call whoever, and let people know. Right, so things will start to change around, and once people recognize there's more eyes in this community, you start to see the change. But I think we need to get more stuff promotional. So like the war on drugs kind of thing. We need those signs in the community. It would be great if we could have something come from our kids. High school, elementary, day school, start posting signs. So when I did youth to youth, right? And that was an eye opener for me too. Those kids talked about pollution. And for the longest time, I never understood what they were talking about. It wasn't the trash on the road. It was all the graffiti in the parks. It was the busted beer bottles, the crushed beer cans. That's what they were calling pollution. So to me, that was actually a change in my life in terms of understanding. Right, because I had a totally different picture going on in my head. Those are the sort of things that we need to get back to here, even at this table. Kids could share a lot, but you got to take the time to understand them. And it can't be that, you know, I'm an adult, you're a little kid, because they recognize issues too. We just got to get to their level and understand what they're talking about. To me, those sort of initiatives show difference in this community. So I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. There's a lot of people that trust what I do. Like I said, I've been asked last week to start Strong Arm again. So I've been riding, me and Heaven's been out riding, and we check on people. I turn the flashlights on people. Keep chasing the four-wheelers, trying to find out who's lighting all these damn fires, because that's getting carried away. And then it's hard to say who is, you know, having COVID issues when they're just suffering from all that smoke. So I don't know if anybody else recognized, but it seems like that smoke has just been laying down flat. So there was times when I thought there was fires up here, and then here they were back here. It was just the smoke rolling through the community. But see, there was a lot of people that were coughing, people were having allergic reactions to it, people had watery eyes. I know I had 3 days of it. So to me, I think that stuff has got to stop too. I don't know what shape Charlie's in. I know he was doing a lot of complaining because of all the calls. And I think he had individual community members start helping him as well. And I believe there was some that came out of Walter that came out and helped. I mean, it was getting ridiculous around here. So that's where the community needs to come in and come together. I know I had to talk to several individuals that were complaining on Facebook, right? But they weren't willing to do anything about it. And in 2 cases, they see the individual lighting the fire and didn't say nothing. Right? That's got to change. And I talked to those individuals and I told them I was upset at them. I said, You know, I said, if that was me, I would have been right out there. I said, right on top of that individual, put that damn fire out. And still report them. So I don't know if people find it fun. And then Shirley lost their house. And that was crazy too. Not one fires, but two. They put out the first one and a day later, the rest of the house goes up by a different fire. To me, that's pure insanity. Things like that shouldn't be happening here. So, to me, I wanted some sort of write-up. I wish we had the jib yet to start posting that kind of stuff. You know, that's just not right, and I don't care who you are. That stuff has to stop. That's insanity. So if there's somebody that's getting off on all these fires, damaging people's property, you know, that individual needs to be found. Because it's gonna continue. And if we wait too long to do something about it, you know, somebody's gonna get seriously hurt or killed. So I wanna see a two-pronged approach to this stuff. And I think the good start would be we monitor that bridge again. We get our own training, put our own people, they know who lives here, who doesn't. And then if it gets to the point where we need to put restrictions on off reserve membership, it's got to be from a point where to show that it's for their safety and ours. The other thing I think that needs to happen, and I've been seeing this in individuals, even just regular people in this community. And I don't know what the answer is, but people are suffering from the lockdown. Right? This isolation is going over a year. People, you know, it's having an impact on people, and I don't know what the solution is, or if you can. I see they're creating social hubs in the States. I don't know if that works or not, but I don't know how you fix that either. I mean, that's a really tough one, and I think people are just kind of at that tipping point. That's what it seems to me, what's happening out here. So people that were doing well in life aren't doing that well. People that made good changes a long time ago have now gone back to their own ways here. I don't know what the answer is. I just recognize what the problem is. So I think discussions like that around this table would be good to figure out what kind of programming we need here to start resolving that kind of stuff. I think one of the other reserves, they were doing like crafting, like how to learn how to craft on the internet. People that sit in front of a computer make stuff. Maybe that's what needs to happen here. I don't know. But I think it's got to be something more specific to here, because I was thinking about it. I've had several individuals who wanted to learn how to start commercial fishing. So my first thought was, well, because of COVID times, I can't do that. So can I create a video and put that on the internet? And that people can watch it, and it'll be specific. It'll be right to here. It'll be one pool. Maybe that's what needs to happen. Something more Walpole specific. So I'm trying to figure out, I don't think it's a single answer. I think it's a multiple answers. And I think it was things that we can do around this table. So that's kind of where I'm at this point. And then if anybody has any specific questions for me, I'm glad to answer. And yeah, it was me, I rescued the guy or helped them.
Yeah, well said.
When I first sat down with Charles, I think it was a diabetes conference that he came to when I first started. He asked me what the #1 health issue I thought was in the community. So I told him that I thought it was mental health issues. And because it affects all of us, especially right now because of COVID, that's a big thing. Like we're seeing everyone's mental health issues coming out to light kind of thing. But we have to get training to all of our community for trauma-informed care, because we all have trauma, any type of trauma. You can just see car accidents, fires, all those kinds of things. We've all lived through that trauma. But the thing is, we don't have a mental health department. We have services here and there, and they're fractured, and they're not cohesive, and they don't provide the services that we need. So that would be one of the areas that I'm trying to look at, rather than spend a lot of money on pens and stuff that says Walpole Island Health Center, because everybody knows our number and you call for everybody else's number anyway. I want to try to shift all those budgets together and reinforce, or at least coordinate the mental health programs that we do offer. Because we do have some really good programs, and we have some really good workers and resources in the community. But people don't really know where to go, and we don't have that really good connection with like a psychiatrist, psychologist, that kind of thing. So that's where I'm looking at trying to bring that stuff together, and then that would be addressing those kinds of issues during COVID. So it's just, these numbers keep going up. It is keep getting pulled that way when I'm trying to get back and do the rest of the everyday kind of stuff and bring programs together that we should have had all along. So I want to be looking to the council to help me lobby for dollars for mental health programming, lobbying for all these types of things, because there's no reason that we only have, like, I'm the supervisor, we have 2 nurses in the community and 1.5 in home community care. If you go to any other First Nation that's smaller than us, they have that, like, kind of services going, and then look at what else we can bring in through proposals and stuff. But we need to get a plan of action, and that's my first thing, is like, we need to look at what we need and what we can get right away. So those things, it's not that I haven't thought of them, it's just, it's really hard to get everywhere right now.
I totally agree with you, but I think we have to really rethink, I guess, the provision of our services. I think we've gone so long in certain ruts, I guess, in terms of the existing programs that we have, that we're almost complacent, I guess, in terms of who they are and what the expectations are in terms of their delivery. And as times change and the community evolves and needs change, I think that we have to rethink some of the services and to put more of an emphasis, as you just identified, with the mental health services. I know that Riel has been working on a small project, and there's a wider movement, I guess, in terms of that need. It's just been described by both you and Keenan in terms of Aboriginal mental health and the uniqueness of this, of those pressures and impacts of this that are unique to First Nation communities that are more, I guess, emphasized in terms of our poverty, our lack of opportunity, et cetera, how that grinds down on the individual, and that we don't necessarily have that agency, that group, I guess, within the community to provide that type of mental or emotional type of support to help them overcome the obstacles that they face on a day-to-day basis. We really have to start looking at that in terms of some broader scope, I guess, to healing of the community. We've been dealing with some of these issues that we identified around the table today for the last 20 years. Like those drug houses have been there since 20 years ago, and they're still there. And it makes you question, why wasn't action taken before? And if it takes action today, then let's do that. Let's identify a dedication of funds to implement the various strategies that are being touched upon around the table today. But I would suggest that to implement that in full force, that this council dedicate $1 million to the establishment of those strategies that are being touched on by the individual community members, council members today, and the community, to look at properly resourcing the strategy. We talk about doing things for the police in terms of combating the drug houses, but the common barrier there we get back from the OPP is that they don't have the financial resources to engage in certain activities to support investigations, etc. Well, I told them the other day, to combat that and put a real war on it. I said, this council is prepared to put money on the table to support our local police. If the OPP won't give it to us, the province won't give it to us, the feds won't give it to us, then we've got money in the bank. Why don't we put our own money on the table to combat the drug houses? If it's a big issue and it's hurting our children and our families, then let's put our own money on the table and let's resource our local police to do those things for this community. And we know what the problem is. Let's identify those resources for those various issues. If it means putting money on our money, I think we should do that. Let's develop those strategies.
Chief?
Motion on that?
Yes.
I'll make a motion.
Neva has her hand.
I'm sorry, Neva, go ahead.
Bonjour, everybody. Great discussion, and I think that today, few of us were chatting back and forth, and we can't do this over chat. We can't do it over texting. The need for these discussions and to hear everybody out is key. When I'm saying strategy, what I mean is an actual task, an actual plan that these things are going to happen. Who's going to do it? When is it going to happen? Let's develop that budget. When we were offline there for a minute, I was just explaining to Jazz there about that group that was developed to start meeting and addressing a lot of things was back in November, I believe. And what we were to do then was come up with these strategies, start putting things into play, have a plan for when or if we ever needed to close the bridge or to address safety concerns or, anything, community disaster, whatever it would be, that we would have these ready to go. And so this group needs to get active for one, get meeting again. And I would put forward that they would develop budgets for all these different areas. I like the idea of putting money towards that, but just throwing a number out there without having some of these concrete numbers allocated to certain things. I think that's something that we need to sit down with or for, but as for getting the bridge monitored right now, we've done it. We've done that already. We know what to do and to go into that, but we do also have to look at what we learned from the last time, how it affected people and how to navigate that. And with all of us sitting together, developing this and doing this, that's what I'm talking about. Let's get this done. Because right now you're talking a lot of different great ideas. We should be taking those things down, putting them in the parking lot, but also looking what's immediate right now to take care of. And Keenan's group there, I appreciate that. I appreciate them. And I also know that, grassroots level things, those are the projects and things that get put into place. Those are what stay and make an impact. And I was feeling a little like I was petitioning you, Chief, and James to get this meeting going so we can do something. And as a community member too, I know how frustrating it is, and I hear the complaints, and I have this coming, people sharing different things, and I see it on Facebook too, what families are going through and things that are happening in our community. I too witness a lot of stuff around here, and it's like my hands are tied, and here I am, a counselor. I should be doing something, and today I'm really pushing for that. Let's get something in place today. Miigwech.
Which, Valerie, then James.
I think we do need a plan. However, I don't have a problem with attaching a budget of whatever amount to a work plan, because it doesn't mean it has to be spent. I mean, we can say $1 million, and if we spend 25,000, and we have money left over. I think what we need to do is get that group if that's the group that's gonna work on something, that we need to do that today. We need to put a budget there, and we need to let those people do the work, so that some of the people in the community will know that something's happening. We've called a special meeting to do that, and I think that we need to do it. But,
Are you prepared to make that motion?
yes, I said I would. I'll make a
Moved by
motion.
Valerie, second by Lyle. Be it resolved that this band council establishes a budget of $1 million to work on ways and means to combat COVID-19, and which will also include safety, health and safety measures, plus to reinforce safety patrols and to enhance our policing services within our community, and that those goals and objectives be further enhanced by that working group that was identified there, and that they begin their work immediately. It's been moved in second. All those in favor? That is carried.
What-
Keenan,
Question for James, is there anything additional that you need from this council at this point?
Not necessarily. I mean, I do want to set the expectations correctly when it comes to staffing the bridge, because I agree, we went through it, there's a lot we know about it, there's less unknown. The reality is though, that talent pool is, for the most part, either tied up at the homeless shelter or in other positions in the organization. But just having gone through the recruitment process for the homeless shelter twice, and having been involved in the recruitment for the bridge, we have a pretty good idea of who's immediately available to do something like that. So that's the barrier. Council said right now, we want to wrap up the warming shelter, reallocate those people to the bridge. That's probably doable, but I just, it's probably not, you know, a decision you want to make. So I just want to let everybody know that's a bigger barrier. If time's not an issue, I think there's training, there's constables, all kinds of solutions. We took a ready and willing pool of people with some security experience. We got them going on the bridge on short notice, and now many of them are at the shelter. It just would be difficult to do both, 24/7 operations at the same time.
Just to listen to that, I think the other thing that might maybe an issue right now is just getting a building there. Right, I'd rather have something permanent put up there than, you know, having the pop-up or what these guys are using the first time. Something that's more weatherproof, but I think something that's more permanent. Because personally myself, I don't know how anybody else is around here, but I'd rather see something there 24/7. And there's just too many bad things happening out here that shouldn't be, and I think a lot of it could be put under control if we had that bridge covered.
some hands over here. Lee, then down there, please.
Like I said about the bridge, it's too bad, because these guys over here, the guys at the warming shelter, like I'm over there, I'm there almost every day talking with the cars and all that kind of stuff. And like just, these guys are noticing the changes that in the people that are staying there. There's no saying as far as the complexion of the skin is coming back. They're acting differently. I mean, I'd hate to see it just end for them, because in my opinion, and what I'm seeing is I'm seeing the change in these guys. They're cleaning up the yard without asking, they're doing things that you can tell they want to get better. They just need more help. And like I said, I'm trying to reach out to people to come up and offer some jobs, help for their addictions. But I mean, you shut it down, like, they're right at the point, they're whole. You know, they're right at the point where we're thankful for it, but now it has to be extended to more than just warming. That we have to provide that hope and future. But like I said, the guards over there are doing tremendous. You know, these guys are trying to cook for them, they're doing their laundry. You know, they're doing things with them that are above and beyond the security guard is supposed to do. But there is in the people using it. And as far as the bridge goes, when I was there, I mean, we saw everything. The security guard in the bridge, the counselors, we had elders that were pull up in their cars crying because of stuff that was going on in the community. And we had to sit there, we had, of course, try to comfort them, you know, we had an old lady coming up crying about something that she couldn't deal with. So everything was there. It was that, it was the drug dealers, it was the stolen goods, it was everything. I mean, if you could have something like that 24/7, you would definitely see a drop in some of that, in the D&Es, in the drug. Like I said, you know, it felt kind of hopeless when you knew you couldn't stop people from going back and forth or sneaking people over in the community and all that kind of thing. You felt helpless because you knew damn well who those people were, but we just couldn't do anything about it. But when, you know, but it did slow down. There was a lot of guys that I personally who was bringing that poison here, and they would try to sneak in, or they go, "Oh, what's going on?" And, you know, get the hell out of here. You know, it was simple as that. And I'd like to see something like that again, because I noticed the difference when I was there.
I think we should pass on that, your point that you make there onto this group there. I think there is a need for that type of refuge, I guess, for the sake of words, all year long, not necessarily to the winter, because these individuals, they need some place to sleep, they need some place to groom themselves, they need some place to provide shelter. Can't have them sleeping in the woods or sleeping on the side of the road. We're a little bit more humane than that. So a way of looking after our fellow band members, but at the same time, when we look at the school and we have it closed, I think we should continue with the lunch program all the time. It should be on right now, even though that our kids are away from that there should be a mechanism in place for those kids to have lunch either picked up or they can have it sent to their homes, because there's a lot of families out there in this perimeter of our community that they can't afford breakfast. So those kids, they really heavily depend on that meal, that nourishment that they get at the school. And when we close the school and we don't provide that meal, with those 2 meals that they get through the course of the day, that affects them. That creates hunger within our community. Doggone, we should continue on with that service even though the school is closed there.
Like I said, these guys over there, they're just hoping for help. They want help. They just don't know how to go and ask for. They're embarrassed about the situations that they put themselves in. You know, I've been over there and I see them, and these guys are just, yeah, they made a few bad decisions in their life, but they want to change. They want to change. And so I mean, I've made a few phone calls. I'm trying to get people over there, but I mean, who can up with a job? You know, they've already got the feeling that everybody already thinks that they're waste of space. You know, that waste of skin. That's what they feel like. But like I said, talking with the guards and stuff, they could see that these guys are, you know, they're appreciative of the place, but they want more. Not to say that they're, you know, demanding it. They just wish they, you know, they could be back to try to get back to the people they were.
I know in Reagantown, even though IEC was questionable, some things was it. The one good thing that came from there was that all of the wigwams, all of the shelters, all the log cabins, all of those things were all made by second chance guys. So they were the guys that couldn't get a job. They were guys who had addictions problems. And they were the same ones that would teach all those kids when they came in, hunting, fishing, all those types of things. That really turned around a lot of those guys, and that was an awesome thing to see. So if we do have a land-based program, if we're looking for anything like that, I have the resources of people who can teach all those types of buildings and stuff like that. And we do have community members who, like me, she can build all those types of things. There's a whole bunch of people who can be involved in that, where it's not necessarily where they're in charge of money, they're in charge of this, they're in charge of that. They're in charge of learning about themselves and how we used to live and things. So that was one really good part of the IEC program. It wasn't necessarily to do with the children so much, but it was to do with the community. And it really brought the community together with that.
I was talking more like, yeah.
They got paid for it.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I mean. You know, there was things, it wasn't like getting them a public works job, it was doing something maybe on the side, cleaning the ditches, cleaning up the dump. Small things, but something that puts a little bit of money in their pocket, gives them a chance to know that there's more, there is something to do during the day. Because like I said, you cruise around this place right now, you see all sorts of guys hoping for employment, hoping for, just looking for something to do. You know, and then when they can't find that something to do, that's when they make the wrong decision. That's when they go and get into that B&E or get into those hard drugs, because like I said, I saw those guys working the other day at the shelter. Nobody asked them to do it. They just got out and did it. You know, and if we give them an opportunity to do that all the time, we'll probably change their life, but at least improve it.
And it really affects the kids too, though, because even my own son, it's like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And he was like, I just want to be a regular guy. And I'm like, no, what job do you want to have? And he's like, no, I just want to be a regular guy and cruise around and just hang out. I'm like, that's not a job. And his next thing was, Donica's smart, she'll take care of me. So it's like, no, this is not a life plan. So it's not unusual. Like, people see this all the time. So it's like, oh, I want to be like that when I grow up. So we have to kind of change that type of thinking.
Getting back to what I said earlier, I guess, in terms of having a real serious rethink, I guess, in terms of the delivery of our programs. A lot of them are motivated on, you have to walk through the door first, I guess, if you want help. I think we're at a state where our service providers, they have to take the first step. They have to get the guy on the tap on the back. Can I help you? As opposed to waiting for them to come into their office door, into the lobby when they're looking for help. If you see them walking on the road, why not stop them? Is there something I can do for you? Like, how can I help you? That's probably the real intent of the program in terms of looking for cures and healing within the community, as opposed to sitting in a chair and waiting for something to happen. And it's time to get, and I've heard it around the table, it's time to get proactive in this in terms of that interaction with those in need.
And we've moved past the prevention, promotion, and education. Like, that was like the biggest thing at the health center was, oh, we only do prevention, promotion, education. It's like, we're past that. Like, we need more than that. That is not important, but we need beyond those three words.
Any concluding comments? Marcia?
Just to follow up with what Lee indicated, Lee, you're a part of this COVID security action plan team. You don't have a chair yet, but this is the group we're talking about that we want big things from, so we can improve them, and that's to come up with a budget in that. But in speaking with the shelter, what we did was we recognized these people as human beings and members of this community, and we addressed their immediate need, which was to get them out of the cold. They all have skills. I know one who would come to Jerem's rental. I would talk to him. I knew what he could do. He can fix anything. So I have bikes that need to be fixed, get them ready for grandkids. So if we tap into those skills, and the more they do, the better they feel. Like, he would go and he'd pick up all the garbage around the building, and he'd be so proud of himself. And we really, that was a real
Just simple things.
simple things that we thanked him. And so I know that. But you're right, we're past that, we've addressed the physical need of getting them shelter. now it's the emotional and all that trauma that that has happened in their life to where they are today. So we have to really be careful that the right people go in there, because I don't want people to go in there and say, you have to do this, you have to do that. They've heard that all their life. You have to take your cues from them. What is it that they want, and who do they feel comfortable with sharing their story? Because they're closed up, they've hurt so much in their life that they put this shell around them, and that's what you have to get at to get them out. They have to start feeling better about themselves, and you're right, hope. We've given them hope. So we recognize them, and our elders too. Everyone is important. We all have different needs, and we're trying to meet those needs here. So I'm really grateful for all the input that people have had. Like this is what we need to do, but we also need to have action, because people have heard it over and over again. So we're the action council, the new council that's going to take action and really do what we know needs to be done.
Chief, can you hear me? It's Burton here.
Yeah, Burton, go ahead.
Yeah, I've got a few thoughts. I really appreciate the input everybody's making. The one thing that stands out is the need for direct contact with each one of our members. And I like the initiative that Keenan's doing with one-on-one contact and in the community. But all of the initiatives, I think, have to be in play. The things that are working, particularly with our border protection, fine tune that and keep that in play. I like the 24/7, that's a necessity. But the direct contact with our members is critical. I'll use as an example, when the numbers got really high at Six Nations, for example, the chief and council went on the camera to the whole community, and they just continued to encourage the community to follow the protocols, follow the safety measures. They went up to 130 people there in the gray. And their traditional people, the clan mothers, they released their traditional members from the ceremony to prevent the interaction. But with us, I think we have to, if it wasn't a pandemic situation, we'd be going door to door and meeting with each household, each member, each family member. So we have to come up with a mechanism to do that, whether it's the radio, whether the full chief and council have an interaction with the community, or whether it's this COVID-19 working group, security action planning group that interfaces. I think we have to ramp that up, where we try, and even using our staff, where we literally check in with every single member on a rotating basis and roll those comments and concerns up, and put some kind of measures in place where they're being heard, and that there's some plan in place to respond to those particular needs. The pandemic world is necessitating us using different communication mechanisms, and my preferred one would be go right to the house. It's not wise right now. I have a mom at home. My home's a nursing home, and I have to keep my bubble small for her care. So that prevents that significantly. Anyway, those are some comments. Is all of the discussion has to be moved forward in the most expeditious way, and I support whatever resources we need to do all those initiatives. And I think we really have to maintain that as much as possible, whatever mechanism, chief and council, one-on-one contact, and even using our staff to make sure that we can't knock on the door, but make sure we have direct contact, whether it's phone or whatever, with every one of our members. We have to use that as one of the strategies. Anyway, those are a few thoughts.
Thank you, Burton. I guess I want to summarize, our meeting this afternoon there, that We have a consensus around the table that we want to proceed on an action plan that involves our own resources. We want to highly motivate our own internal resources in terms of Keenan's group, police services, and all the other good programs that we have going in the reserve, on the reserve, with the, I guess, the overall goal of looking at the health and security of our community and combining that with enhanced crime prevention and eradication within our community. Those are some of the overall goals and parts that we have discussed there. I think that we should put, as a council, we should put all of our support behind those initiatives and to look at the key word in all of this is action. And we have to look at that. And I guess the challenge for us, I guess, in terms of the group, the task force that we have identified is to identify goals. And one of those goals is to have zero infection within our community, to eradicate COVID within our community. Without any specific goals, then what are you shooting for? And I guess that's our challenge, I guess, that we have to face as a council, that we do whatever we can to prevent the infection within our community, whether it's setting up some type of customs operation on our bridge and to look at all these other enhanced services, health-wise, and with some emphasis on our mental well-being of certain individuals, and to look at providing resources to the needs of our community. We have to realize that our community is poor. Overall, it's poor, and that we have to take some responsibility to share those resources with them. We have to put some emphasis on providing the needs of the homeless, our children, I guess, in terms of looking at out for their nutritional needs, et cetera, et cetera. And there's a whole spectrum of need that we have to address. And over the course of time, I believe that we have to look at realigning and refocusing our programs to meet the changing times and to look at how can we service our community better and channel our resources to do that. If we are going to act as an independent sovereign body, then we have to look at utilizing our own resources to do those things for ourselves. We can't totally rely upon the province or the feds to shape their programs or even provide us with the financial resources. That's the challenge for us as a council, as a governing body, is to create those resources internally, that wealth, to provide for ourselves and to meet our own needs. And that's our challenge over the course of time going forward. And we have to do the best we can with the resources we've got. And we have to address our immediate priorities. And our immediate priorities are looking at the health and safety of our community and looking at enhancing crime prevention within our community as well. So with that, I want to thank the council for engaging in this very constructive meeting this afternoon. I want to thank Kyla and Chad for providing their insights, and let's put some action into our words and go forward with our initiatives. Thank you, everyone. Big watch.
Chief, just
Marshall.
what is Customs doing with that old building now that they put the newer one up? Can that be moved?
Well, first, I want to question their view of that. Being flooded where it's at now, they're all along a system property like that. I imagine it's going to be dismantled in some capacity. Elaine.
So the COVID action working group is Neva Isaac Sands, Lee Jacobs, Keenan Johnson, Lyle Johnson, Cody Muskoka, Ron Sony, and can we add Kyla to that? It's a COVID-19 working group.
I was there.
No, that, you're talking about the emergency response.
No, I was at both.
Oh, you were at this,
This
you're at
one.
on this one then?
I just come to
This
everything.
group never met yet.
Yeah, we haven't met yet, so trying to do
Well, Grace
resources.
just
we
said
call
you
in,
guys-
she doesn't have to, she's pretty busy at what she's doing now.
I thought we met in November.
Not this year.
No, because.
Order.
James told us they met and they developed the COVID action plan.
No, there's other.
There's a recommendation.
James, can you give us the names of all these people that are on these different groups? We have the the emergency control group. We have the operation control group. Is that the same people?
So the title is the Emergency Operations Control.
Oh, it's all one. And I had Lyle, Tracy, Health Center, Women's Shelter, Principal, Public Works, Arena, Fire, HR, Amy and Derek.
So we'll trade on Tracy for Kyle.
No, that's not correct. And that's because we went through an exercise where we evaluated who had been identified, went back to our emergency response plan. There had been a decision back in June to open it up because very few people were meeting remotely. And there was this pressure from staff, your decisions are affecting me, I want to be part of this. And it was making it less effective, so we went back to the emergency response plan and identified who should be in the plan. So I can give you the names if you want.
So your emergency control operations group, that title is emergency response group now?
No, there's an emergency response plan. With an emergency management team identified in the response plan. But because we've declared an emergency, we meet as an emergency operations controller.
That's too complicated. Yes.
It's
We
complicated.
actually had training in a much more simplified, we had training in a much more simplified process that the province is using. And we're looking at transitioning to that. It's called incident management system, and it's a more simplified way to look at it. But right now, we're going by the letter of the emergency response plan.
And that's the province? Is that the province?
It's us, it's our plan for the council.
Why don't you just call it the emergency working group? Valerie.
I just think that group that is gonna do this work should also include Kyla and Chad, the police and the health center.
Well, Lyle said they would be resource.
Yeah,
because they're busy.
Their tables are full now.
Don't get hung up on the title. Don't be there.
Yeah,
Indeed.
yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Is that agreeable to Kyla and Chad?
Sure.
I
I just show up when you guys tell me.
I'm sure there's checks all over the place now. So.
They don't have too much choice.
Yeah.
Well,
We
No,
call
I'm
them
not
ahead of time.
Okay, so there is the security action group that's gonna come up with a budget and everything. And then this other emergency group still meets.
Emergency control.
Emergency control group.
We meet at least weekly, right?
We meet weekly right now, but we can be called at any time.
Do you do Zoom? Like
We
where
do
we can
Teams.
sit in and just listen so we can share information when we're asked by the community?
We did that last,
Yeah,
Last
I
call.
couldn't zoom in though for some reason.
it was on a Teams.
Now that is part of, so it was opened up to many people. Because there were a lot of the same questions, so from about June until almost November. I think there were almost 30 people that had been invited because there was so much pressure on to be part of it. And it really impacted the effectiveness of that group, and we weren't making the kind of decisions we want to be making in our emergency operations control group. So it has a very different role than I think than this security group.
Okay, so as counselors then, you have minutes from that group, right?
Yeah.
How soon are those minutes out where you could just email them to us so we can know what, stay on the same page with information?
Yeah, we can probably go back to sending them out immediately. And so tighten them up and have them sent out the same day.
To the
Council.
chief and council.
Yeah.
That,
That was a past practice, and I think, yeah, with just the changes and with more people getting involved, it changed. But it's good to tighten that up because let's say we had a flood or something, If we have 30 people and no one knows what their role is,
Right.
that's going to potentially have a very negative impact.
And a lot of the time, Marcia, it would be like, I get on, do the update, this is what we need to do. And I'd be looking for input, and when you have too many people, no one wants to say anything. Or else everybody brings it down to their personal program or
Yeah,
their
I
personal
understand.
involvement or whatever. So that's why, I don't even think our meetings are very long, they're like 20 minutes, half hour most. We get our decisions done, we send it out and do it, like, it's not a lot of debate and stuff like that. It's just, this is what we need to do. What do you guys think? Let's go with it. If you don't think so, and then we go.
So for me, just getting the minutes so I know, then we're all on the same page, right? So we're sharing the same information for all the people that call us and say what's going on.
You're gonna be a little less confusing.
Yeah.
I'd just like to make a suggestion that there is one counselor, I think on that, group. And if Lyle could like send us a text message or something, letting us know if there's anything important, that would really help.
Sure.
Come on, yeah, do that.
Because normally we see the minutes, whether it's like a couple days later, maybe, like it was Friday, we see them Monday.
Can I have a motion to reserve, adjourn, and you can have your, afterthought discussions after this. Moved by Keenan, second by Lee, all those in favor. Eric, we're adjourned. Now carry on.
I just want Keenan, I need Keenan, is strong on group to check on a couple of elders.
Yeah.
Sure.
Lyle and Chad.
Good for Tyler.
Private meeting, we can find out.
That's right.
I know, I've been putting it off. So what is this? What?
Yeah.
What is this? Oh, I know.
Cleaning desks. Fishing It only takes a couple minutes.
Well.
And all of the sheep are just. Yeah.